In this episode, I am going to be reviewing the new Italian film, The Hand of God, which was just released on Netflix. This was written and directed by Paolo Sorrentino, and it starred Filippo Scotti, Toni Servillo, and Luisa Ranieri. Welcome to Robert Bellissimo at the Movies. This is a film podcast where I explore the ways in which stories are told on film. Today I'm going to be talking about The Hand of God, and for anyone who's been on my channel before, I often do much older films, which occasionally I will do something that is brand new. So for those of you who are not used to the way of my style of working, I usually have a lot of spoilers. So since this is a brand new film, if you're here just to hear whether it's good or not to check out on Netflix for the first time, click off because I do have spoilers all the time. That's just the nature of deep dive reviews. So watch the film and come back. But if you've watched the film and you want to hear what I have to say, please, hang around. I've been meaning to see this. I'm such a big Fellini fan, and, Sorrentino has often said that Fellini has been an inspiration to him. And I don't even really know Sorrentino's work too well. I've seen The Great Beauty. I love This Must Be the Place with Sean Penn, which is one of his American films. I thought that was such an incredible, underrated film. I'm going to really have to review that one of these days. I remember seeing it in the theater when it came out about almost 10 years ago now. This film I was looking forward to checking out. It certainly looked intriguing. And I quite enjoyed it. It certainly has surrealistic elements, and it's essentially about what it is to grow up. It's a coming of age story. Of course, we've seen many great coming of age stories told in cinema many, many times, and this is another unique look at of this young boy. Filippo Scotti plays Fabietto Schiza, and he's part of a family in Napoli, and he has an older brother. He lives with his family in Napoli and in the south of Italy, and they're living in a small apartment together. And there's, these really odd, bizarre scenes. It begins with Luisa Ranieri, who plays Patricia, in line somewhere, and someone knows all of her secrets. This guy shows up, and he knows that her and her husband can't have a child, and basically he has to come with her because he can help her get a child. And he brings her to this place which just seems like it appears out of a dream, with this weird Christmas like tree that's on a slant, and there's a little monk there that they call, who is basically just touches her and gives her some money. And it was almost as if he was some kind of a guardian angel who was helping her with her problems in terms of having children, which is what she wants. So we see her go home, and there's obviously problems in their marriage because her husband thinks that she's, because she has money on her, that she's become a prostitute, and there's jealousy, and he hits her. And she calls her family over, the parents. This is played by Toni Servillo and Teresa Saponangelo, and the nephew Sabiato Schiza. And what's a little odd is that when they appear, they come over to stop the fighting, and her boob is hanging out of her shirt. And the strange thing about this film is that he is really attracted to his aunt, which is pretty icky, if you ask me. And him and his brother later on, or even talk about her sexually. And the aunt clearly has mental health problems, and so the family are all, this big family gathering, and they have various, it's somewhat funny, but also in a dark, creepy sort of way, because they're all sort of play these, sick sort of tricks on each other, or cruel jokes that they get a laugh at. You can certainly feel the love, but it's love in a dysfunctional sense. And Patricia, the aunt, is there, and they go out on a boat later, and she gets completely naked in front of everyone in order to sunbathe, and she asks her nephew, Fabietto, to come and bring a towel. And when he brings it, she goes, "Oh my, how you've got it so big." So that was a really strange part of this story that they lusted over their own aunt. And this is a blood aunt. This is their mother's sister. And her, there's this, of course, at the same time, they're big soccer fans. And takes place in the 80s when Maradona started to play for Napoli. If anyone is not a big soccer fan, or if you're watching this in Europe, we could call it football. Maradona in the 80s was one of the biggest soccer players in Argentina, and they would die to get him to go to Napoli, and he does. And it's such a big deal to everybody. It means the world to them that they got Maradona on this team. But his brother asks him, what would you rather have, Maradona on Napoli or to sleep with Zia Patricia, the aunt? And he says to have Maradona. So that was a big part of it. And as I was watching it, I was like, why is, as a big soccer fan myself, I'm wearing a Italian soccer jersey as we speak. I could understand really loving soccer and how much that may mean for your team to win, but this means everything to them, to in a sense where it's just too far, about how the family, how much they're almost in tears because they got Maradona. So what we see later on, it begins to make more sense as to why that was such a big deal. And it's because they're all looking for escape in their life. And it's not to put down sports. If you enjoy sports, that's fine. But for them, it meant everything to them, because they're sort of always trying to distract themselves from the reality and the problems of their own life. And, unfortunately, what happens is the parents die, and this carbon monoxide poisoning gets into the apartment, and the sons weren't there at the time. And, because he was watching Soccer Summer, he was watching Maradona play, and one of the relatives at the funeral says, Maradona saved you, so they have the strange superstition, so it can make you laugh and cry all at the same time. But the relationship with the parents is interesting, because there's this affair that comes out that the mother already knew about, but the son, one of the sons, Fabiato, the main character, he doesn't know about it. And this woman calls in the middle of the night, and as they're fighting, she gets into such a rage, and she's crying, sobbing. It's such a great performance from Teresa Saponangelo. Forgive my bad pronunciation there, even though I'm Italian Italian descent. But she was great, scary, and you see how much affecting the sons, even though they're older. One's in his 20s, the other one's a teenager, and he's shaking, and his brother's comforting him. And it was a hard scene to watch, but it was beautifully performed. But this death was interesting, and it becomes clear as to the significance of their life before and after the death, because the brother is also an actor, and he meets Fellini, and something he says, that Fellini says cinema is a distraction from real life. And I don't know if Fellini actually said that, but I don't think Fellini truly meant that. He probably meant that a lot of films are pure escapism, that we should have more truthful stories about life. And we just get these fragments and these clues about, there's what that he perhaps would want to be a filmmaker. And we see later on that that's something that he very much is interested in. He goes to a set once, Fellini shooting a scene, and it's just these little moments of that as the film goes on, and that his interest in movies is building, and his actually interest in soccer is going down. And I really took that as, because for him, soccer had no value in terms of and getting closer to who he is, but being a storyteller is very much of value. And later on, he meets this director that he really likes, and it's really comical, really wonderful scene. But he's like, I'm a fan of yours. I hate fans. I don't talk to fans. But they begin to bond, and he's sort of screaming at him, lecturing him. What do you have to say? If you want to make a movie, forget about going to Rome. Only idiots go to Rome. We got stories here. Tell your story. You need to have something to say. You need to have balls to make a film, or else. And this makes me wonder if this is something Sorrentino experienced, about the nature of storytelling, bringing you into life that perhaps about, which is the kind of filmmaking I like, which is why I thought this was a really interesting film. And I think he has a big impression on Fabietto, because Fabietto begins to see what the man's talking about. Because what happens is, Napoli, the soccer team wins the championship, and he could care less. The whole city is celebrating, and he's walking through the city having no interest, whereas before he was one of the biggest soccer fans ever. And again, I don't think that they're putting down soccer. I think it's an example of something that perhaps for this man, this young guy, doesn't have any value in terms of his own growing up. And what was interesting is that he even meet this older woman who lives in the building with him. She begins to be flirtatious with him, and she has sex with him, and she says to him, think of a younger woman that you really are that you find really attractive. And he of course thinks of his aunt. So again, there are they are creepy. I mean, they're sort of twisted in a sense, but at the same time, because he says, well, why did you do this? Because he wanted to sleep with her again, and she says, no, you're going to sleep with someone your own age next time. I did this to set you free. And I really took that as, loss of virginity, meaning a loss of innocence, meaning it's you're on a journey. You've now taken another step towards finding a center, finding who you are, and where you at least want to go, and some kind of a direction. Now, in the middle of the film, it's interesting because his brother is sort of confused and doesn't, and he's just hanging out, he's gallivanting, and there's an interesting moment where they're watching Maradona play, and he's doing these amazing free kicks in practice, and he says to him, you see what he's doing there? And Fabiano says, what? He goes, that's perseverance. He's kicking the ball until basically it's perfect. And he says he doesn't have that. So the brother, unfortunately, I like that there's a real love between the two brothers, but he just unfortunately is still in a state of loss of his parents, confusion, not knowing what to do. And his brother, the younger brother, very much also in the middle of the film is in that same headspace. So I really appreciated that Sorrentino has you sort of live amongst the confusion with these characters, and not knowing what to do in a conventional storytelling where there's inciting incidents, and people have objectives and obstacles. That's certainly a part of this, but it brings you a little more into life, and there's just lets it breathe in the middle. Okay, let's these guys have this tragedy where they lose their parents. What would happen with young men like that? Well, to Sorrentino, they wouldn't know what to do. They would be, maybe acting out. They would be, and he does. He even, becomes friends with a criminal at one point. The young man Fabietto. So that was really, I really liked that about it. I just thought that was very true. And I like to see movies and stories where we do just sort of hang with the characters and when they don't know what to do, because I think people often experience that, and it's uncomfortable and it's unsettling. And I think that's something we need to see more in storytelling. So, of course, later on at the end, you just see him get on a train and go to Rome, even though the filmmaker that he befriended said, don't go to Rome. But he goes to Rome, obviously, to pursue his career as a director. I love at the end when you see Fabietto going to Rome on a train, and he looks out the window and he actually sees the little monk that his Zia Patricia saw at the beginning, and the monk is the reason Patricia becomes pregnant, because again he's like a guardian angel, and unfortunately she miscarries. She goes into a mental institution later on in the film because clearly she had problems from what you could see in the early part of the film, but whereas the angel could only help her so much. The hope is that the little monk is going to be an angel on the shoulders of Fabietto at the end. So I really love that angel, which is very Fellini-esque in 8.5 and in La Dolce Vita. It's a celebration of cinema, this movie, in a sense. It's a celebration of cinema, but also of the growing pains of growing up. So it does two beautiful things at once. It really brings you into the reality of growing up, and loss, and failures, and confusion, and how difficult it is. But at the same time, shows that basically Sorrentino is saying we need to see people telling stories about where they have a point of view, or they have something to say that's meaningful, that can help others, that has value to others, to bring them into their own life. So I thought that this film has enormous value in terms of really encouraging people, whether you're an artist or not, but to look to stories, literature, movies, music, whatever it may be, because there's so much value in storytelling in order to gain empathy for others and to learn more about yourself. So I thought it was quite good. There was some moments where I wasn't too sure early on. Some of the, again, with the ant and lusting over the ant, some things weren't sitting quite right with me. And but I think I'll have a perhaps even more enriching viewing on the next time I see it, because as me, I'm a great believer in seeing movies more than once, because great works of art has more to offer with each viewing. So I think it's something I'll probably like even more the second time, but I really enjoyed it. So if you haven't seen it, you can see it on Netflix. It's a wonderful story with wonderful performances, great surrealism, which is very Fellini-esque, and I highly recommend it. So thank you so much, folks, for watching. I'm also on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/Robert Bellissimo at the movies, where I have bonus content that is based on polls that I send out at the beginning of every single month. Those polls are videos that are similar to what I do on the YouTube channel, but somewhat different. It's just a few dollars a month, really, which goes a long way to help out podcasters, creators, all sorts of people who start these membership in order to keep doing free episodes like this on YouTube. So patreon.com/Robert Bellissimo at the movies, where you can read full details, and there's different tiers that you can apply, that you can become a member into, whichever one that you like the best. And lastly, if this is your first time here, please consider subscribing to my channel. It is absolutely free to do so. Hit the like button on this as well. Leave a comment. Let me know if you've seen this film. Please tell me your thoughts. Thank you so much, folks. I hope to see you very soon.